Raksha.
Hi. I'm sorry, something I was put in the wrong group, I guess.
Yes, I think it happened to a couple of people. So I think now we are all in the right group.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and I really appreciate your interest, and I hope that we can have a very productive discussion as well. So maybe I just want to I don't think we need again introductions, but I'm happy to hear from you if you want to share something. I do have notes on from the ministries you're working with, so I have some details. But I guess no one knows Shangsung. Shangsung is our spy.
Yes. Do you want me to go, Luciana?
Sure. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Bula.
Bula.
My name is Changsung Lim, and I am an associate program officer at the ISS Secretariat, working in the same office as Luciana. I've been listening to your discussion not as a spy, but as as someone who's willing to learn and also who appreciates what you are doing right now here at this training program. So I was at the back end trying to help Mavic organize this training program, and I'm not a specialist in taxonomy. My background is in marine policy and a little bit of science, but not biology at least. So mostly I'm here to support, just to keep track of time also to help Luciana. But if there are any questions that's relevant to more policy and regulation side of ISA, maybe I can jump in, but otherwise I'll be just quiet listening in and judging you.
No, I think one important thing you missed, Shangsang, is that Shangsang has also worked previously with the Convention on Biological Diversity. So indeed, he has quite experience in intergovernmental process, and also, ISA is more focused on the areas beyond national jurisdiction, but CBD is also working more on EEZs and national waters. So it's I will rely also on Shangsung's experience and your experience, because I'm more familiar with deep water and areas beyond national jurisdiction in general. So I think it's good to have him here. I really appreciate that he's willing to help us. And so without losing more time, because we did lost some time with these technical arrangements, I think when I also had a look at the reports that you produced and that you presented over the past few days. And I think one thing I would like to mention before we start, and this is, first of all, I would like to say this is your work. I'm only here to help guide your discussions and maybe bring some focus when things start going all over the place, which is very common when we have brainstorms and group discussions. But this is really for you to prepare as a group and to talk to each other and to understand what are the common interests and the common challenges. So before I give you the floor, I just wanted to make a brief comment, because I think it stands out from the presentations and the reports that sometimes terminology is not clear to everybody. So in this particular group, when we talk about biological sampling and preservation, I noted that preservation was in some times referring to the actual sample preservation, so the storage of samples and how the samples are conditioned and so forth, or preservation in the context of conservation, preservation of marine environment, which is very different. So I'm not saying that we have, I guess when we thought about, it's of course, the protection of marine environment is one important aspect. Of course, that's why this is about marine bioresources and biology and biodiversity. So the preservation of biodiversity is an underlying ground for the discussion, no doubt about that. And I think this is definitely one of the aspects that needs to be considered. But I just wanted to make these, because you may want to discuss these two, it's very different, right? So in terms of the bigger picture and the more practical aspect of preserving biological samples. And similar to the words biological sampling, I think this is more, there was also some ambiguity, but I think that it's not, there's not so much a different, I don't think it's such a drastic ambiguity, is more that it can also refer to different things. So we can think about biological sampling from the, when we are actually in the field collecting the sample or the animals, like, and that could even be video observations, or it could, doesn't need to necessarily imply a physical collection of sample. And then there's a sample that we can extract from, when you collect fishes or turtles or other animals, and you extract a piece of, or the otolith, or a piece of muscle or blood or whatever, right? So just to bring these things in mind, so that we, I don't know, it's this cross, and maybe because I'm a biologist and I'm also taxonomist, and I'm really obsessed with the classification and meanings and word or arranging words. So I think this was something that I would like to bring to you, and I'm happy to hear if that was clear, or if if you have any comment around it. And I think it would just help the discussion, to bring everybody to the same page. And of course, there are, you come from different experiences and practical, you're handling different practical sides of these marine bioresources. So it's, I think sometimes those ambiguities are just natural, and that's what happens when we bring together experts and people from different backgrounds and multidisciplinary fields. So I'm happy to stop here, hear from you, and in terms of kicking off the action plan, because I will be in trouble if we don't have an action plan at the end of the day, to hear from you. I think it was also clear from the presentations and the reports that there are several challenges that are common across all of your fields of action and all your mandates, or the mandates of your organizations, and that face similar challenges. and other challenges that may be more specific to one or another. So I think for choosing where we're going to focus or which challenges you would like to discuss and address, that's sincerely all up to you, and I'm happy to just hear what you would like to prioritize or to move on. So I'll stop now, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts and suggestions and start. Thank you.
I'm just a bit confused now. Like when she explained the definition of preservation, so we will be looking at the preservation of marine resources or the preservation of the actual samples. The action plan will be on what? Marine resources.
I think we focus on the preservation of the samples for the action plan, because either way it will still inform the preservation of the resources in general.
Because
So-
if
If it comes to preservation of sample, then we might look at the methods used to preserve the samples, the culture, tissue, and all that. But then when it comes to conservation, then we will look at the methods that we need to apply in order to protect that particular resource. So
Miss Dr. Luciana, what are your options on this? Your opinion?
I mean, I don't think we need to necessarily decide one against the other. Like you say, that they are, I think we can address both. Yeah, they're
Yes.
both important.
Both,
Right.
yes.
So I think it just requires to be put in the right context and in the and with the right and identifying then the overall goal and then the stakeholders and other actions will necessarily be different. I think if I can just add something is that, like, I'm sorry, I think it was Jacqueline, if I'm not wrong, or sorry, I couldn't understand who was saying that the addressing also the preservation of samples is part of the data and information managing that is needed to also inform the preservation of marine environment, because those collections and those tissue banks and or just the natural collection are also important in the sequence of maintaining and sharing information. So I would advise to probably start with that one if we want to break out in terms of, you know, steps of or you know, start with that and then see how that links and fits into the overall picture of preservation of diversity, which is in my view a wider scope. That's my view. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to add something. I also agree with you, ma'am, because coming from the Ministry of Environment and from a point of view of conservation, yeah, I think it is important to have that in our action plan as well. And as I mentioned yesterday in my presentation regarding permits, especially for endangered species that we have. So it's important, I think, to address that as well. And having that importance of the permit process, highlighting the importance of permit process in our action plan, so that we can capture the information of the research that is going on in our country. So thank you.
Yes, and I think that's why I also point that out. I remember seeing that in the reports, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think it can or it should be forgotten in the discussion. That's what I wanted to say. So I totally agree with that. Maybe if it helps, I can just very briefly share the slide for our guidance on what are we supposed to think about or to start writing down. I guess we are more at the writing down time. And maybe, I don't know how, I was also thinking in terms of helping to come up with a concrete outcome on this. I don't know if you would like to assign one person to take the notes or to write, maybe, or if it helps, I can also just use a blank slide, and I can type some things, and then I can share with you. So I think that this could help the discussion and the final report and the preparation faster, because there's not really a lot of time. So I'm happy also to get your, or I may ask Shangsung to help us. If Shangsung would like to help us. Yes, somebody is willing to say?
Yes, me. Just, ma'am, I just wanted to advise the whole group. I think some of us who came early, we were having some short discussions, and we have thought of the three main objectives of the action plan. And these are firstly, to form a collaboration with the government stakeholders for biological sampling. Second is to develop sampling plans and methods. And third is to seek CAPEX budget for technological innovation for sampling and preservation, and also for capacity building through a business case and submit it to Ministry of Finance. That is for funding.
You have it almost done.
Yeah. So
Okay, so would you like to repeat, or do you have this written down already? Am I duplicating your work?
no, we just wrote it in a
Piece of paper. Okay, so if I put it here, maybe then I can just share this with you, and then everybody will have access to it. That be helpful? I'll just put something. And I'm very proud of this group.
You are
oh, I'm
clicking.
having some, yes,
You
I
are
cannot hear
clicking.
properly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
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 I'm sorry, it's the connection, but can you guys hear me? Can you mute yours? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, Dr. Luciana. So we were thinking of just starting a Google Doc and working off the Google Doc, and everyone could get access to that and just throw in their ideas. So we've started one, and I just like to share it with the group, but I need their email addresses to do this.
Oh, perfect.
So
even better. So then I can sit back and enjoy the ride. I'm sorry, you're breaking. Yeah. Is Liba that is talking, right?
Every chat I'm yes.
So I see email addresses going in the chat.
Dr. Luciano, can we also get yours and Mr. Lim, so that
Sure.
your email addresses as well, so that you could be, so we can share the doc with you as well, so you know what's happening.
Yeah, that's great. And if you don't mind, so I'm just, yeah, if you don't mind, perhaps the person that is typing could share the screen and then we could all see, or everybody, or you're, I guess everybody can make inputs into the document, right? As we go along with the discussion. But I think it's probably less messy if one person takes the lead, and then of course you will have all time to go through it and put more inputs.
Ma'am, we also wanted to clarify, this has been explained to us by Dr. Mo yesterday, that the action plan that we are going to write, is it this group who needs to implement it?
You mean the implementation of the action plan as a whole?
Yes, yes.
Well, I'm not sure I'm capable to address that question. My understanding is that after this group discussion, we will have tomorrow time to discuss all group, each of the three groups, right? And then there will be some more inputs and discussions. So you can also contribute to you can also make comments and contribute to other group action plan. In terms of finalizing and implementing, I'm not sure exactly what is, because I would imagine that then goes, it's via Quaker, that is also, that it will go through a process. So I'm afraid I cannot answer the follow-up steps, but I think I can help clarify with Dr. Mo and get back to you on this.
Yeah, because while we have we have thought about the goals or the objectives of what we want to achieve from this action plan, or where will this action plan be driving to, we want to be realistic as much as possible, you know.
Sure.
So,
yes, and I think that's a very good ambition. It's not for the exercise of learning how to write an action plan, right? It's to help you to implement it. But what I cannot guarantee is and I think once you have an action plan, then you're in a much better position to address whoever needs to be contacted to help you to implement it, right? So I would have to stop here in terms of understanding how the program itself will help with that phase of taking it from the paper to the practical world and implementation. But I think really, because one of the goals is, if I understand, is that you are given now this opportunity to create these bridges among yourselves and among your institutions, and to be able to take it forward, right? So that's also, like you say, an opportunity not to be, you know, it's not just an exercise. It's, yeah. So I think it's, yeah, it's to keep that in mind with the possibility of how we're going to implement it. Then exactly who's going to support and how it's, you know, the different steps. I think those discussions can also be taken also during the day tomorrow. I think that's the most important thing also to when we bring all the different group outputs and see, because maybe there are things that are also addressed in the other groups that can help you, can help this group, and so and vice versa.
Yes,
So,
ma'am, actually what we have found out is that Fiji already have a national biodiversity strategy and action plan for Fiji for 2020 till 2025. And from that document, there is nothing on biological sampling and preservation stuff in it. So what we also thought of doing is to write to the minister through the PS to some of the action plans that we are suggesting in this forum to be included in this this strategy and action plan for Fiji, because this biodiversity strategy and action plan, it includes both the terrestrial and marine resources.
I see.
Yes, so like we are just thinking at our levels what can be done. And yesterday we also asked Jean, like when we are writing a business case to our ministry for funding, if if somebody from if one of our lecturers can actually assist us in developing one before we formally submit, so that you know, to strengthen the business case, so that it gets accepted in Ministry of Finance for funding.
I see. Yes, I think those are very good suggestions, Kumal, and I think we can definitely organize or first of all try to clarify with Dr. Mo from my hand, and but also bring that to the discussion tomorrow and see what you know, because maybe we can also put it as immediate action to you know, we can identify. So if we okay, I see here we have already some input to goals and objectives. So for example, yeah, in the approaches, maybe you can already make some of those suggestions, because the approach is how you're going to do it. So you identify the goals, the challenges that need to be addressed, who are the stakeholders that need to be involved, and then the approaches to implement. So I think if we break down the plan into, yeah, into these
ma'am, we are also thinking to have short-term action plans and long-term action plans.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think when, if we go, I was just having a quick look at the key elements. I think actually, sorry, I don't think I received the link to the document. Maybe it went to spam. Maybe let me check. Sometimes our oh, okay. Sheng Tsung sent it to me. Okay. Okay, I have it now. Oh my God, I have too many things open in my computer. I don't know which one I'm looking at anymore. So yeah, one thing that is missing, and I'm gonna just copy it.
We also have to include the women
Yes.
stuff there, yeah. Gender equity.
Yes, into the discussion. So, oh, I'm not signed up. Okay. I need to create my. Would this be easier if I had shared my Gmail account instead of my ISA account? Because I already have an account. Sorry, I'm just slow. I'm getting it. I found I get it. I just didn't want to lose because coming back to the yeah, to the point that you were mentioning about short term and long term. I think we need to consider that, and the last the last point on the action plan, which is about the expected outcomes and success criteria. And I think here you can also, well, it's not only, yeah, you can do short-term and long-term actions and associated outcomes that would be with those. Okay. All right, so
Raksha, I'm just not sure about the role of Ministry of Health. Do they only look after the public health or also the like marine and animal health? Public Ministry of Health is. Fisheries looks after the aquatic side, marine side, no? Okay, so if we are to form collaboration with government stakeholders as part of goal number 1, we'll have to write to who? The PS for Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Fisheries only, or there will be another? As the goal item number 1, which is to form collaboration, right? So as part to develop the action plan, Now, how we can achieve that would be to write to Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Fisheries, PS. Only two ministries. Or is there any other third party? Environment and Fisheries, right? And then we can ask them for the work schedules on the plans, how often they are going out sampling and stuff, and then see if we can collaborate, no, and go as one and look into the methods of sampling and preservations, yeah, for information sharing. Miss Dr. Luciana?
Yes.
Yeah, we were just discussing about how we are going to go about with goal number 1, informing collaboration. So in Fiji, we have 2 ministries, which is Ministry of Environment and Waterways and Ministry of Fisheries. So what we're thinking is that we write to the permanent secretaries of these 2 ministries, and we explain to him our intention on what we wanting to do, and then we ask for information sharing, like because the thing is these 2 ministries, they both go out in the sea for sampling, but at different schedule times. You are mute.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was going to just ask because when we talk about sampling and preservation, it still seem a bit general and broad. So I think eventually we need to link that to some. Okay, what are the resources that you're looking at? Is it, it's like a broad, I don't know if I'm making sense, but or maybe I'll let you explain what you were saying, because you were saying that they go out for sampling at different times. But what is the focus of their sampling? Is it a similar focus? Is it like collecting similar species? Is it very different species? What is the sort of purpose of the sampling?
Eva is here. She's from Ministry of Fisheries. She'll explain.
Of sampling, yeah?
Okay.
I'm on mute.
So with regards to, I'm not on mute, but can you hear me? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so with regards to what everybody does, for example, academia, she can hear me. Set? Okay, so with regards to when academic institutions, CSOs, when they go out, their objectives are aligned to the ministry and the government's priorities. So when everybody goes out, it's to meet a certain target within the Ministry of Fisheries or Environment. So everything has to be aligned in order for all the information to be streamlined, and policies can be made from that.
Okay.
So Maria had raised a point with regards to facilities. The Ministry of Fisheries has some expertise, but we lack the laboratories, the research facilities for that. So with regards to collection of samples, when academia does collection of samples, they have the facility to initiate the first steps for preservation. And then they go ahead to the collaborating academic institutions across to Australia and New Zealand. When the ministry does it, we go through academic institutions, for example, FNU and USP. And that's the same for, so government is restricted at that aspect for infrastructure for research facilities and the ability to initiate the first few steps for preservation.
I see. So overall, it would be important at the ministry level to improve the access to those facilities. So even if the laboratories exist in the university, because I mean, I think what we need to think about is, you know, there can be multiple ways of solving the issues, right? It could be that because it's also not, ideal world would be the ministry to have its own laboratory, right? And so it
Yes.
could be more independent and also faster at doing things.
Yeah.
But it can also still establish, which I think it's what happens at the moment, if it's collaborating with university. So when the samples are collected, then they are transferred to the university and then they are processed there, right? So it would also help that that process could be enhanced and maybe like more staff, or, you know, so the different, it's not necessarily laboratory facilities, but maybe more staff could already help the process. I'm just throwing ideas.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, you know, I think just trying to keep a different range of approaches that can be suggested
Yes.
to improve collaborations.
So if I may add on to that, with regards to the collaboration, because it's cost effective at the moment. We're developing, but we have collaborative partners who are very well developed, high advancements. So it's cost effective for the government to use these collaborations, use these networks. But then infrastructure is needed, facilities within government. Yes, that's true. Because the need is there. For example, look at the Korean government and everything that the university has in place for government. But then for Fiji or Muslim, I believe it will be across the region. It's the same case. We have a lot of support from well-established governments with regards to this.
Right. And if I may ask for the actual sampling, I mean, in terms of going out to collect the samples, is the ministry does its own surveys. So it has its own boats, vessels, equipment to go out. How? Okay.
Yes, that's the case. We work extensively as well with the CSOs and the academic institutions. Because when we are spread across the Fiji is divided into 4 regions, and it's easy for us to be networking and using the resources. So it's hitting a couple of birds with the same stone.
I see. But maybe improving the sampling methods, or not improving necessarily, standardizing or having some more coordinated sampling program and sampling plan. That is one thing that is missing, that as you are suggesting as the second goal, right?
Yeah.
I see.
So most of our CSOs have a lot of funding from
philanthropic,
yeah, from America, New Zealand, Australia. So they come with a lot of very good financial funding for these kind of activities. That's why it's easier for government to work with those CSOs who have those networks existing already. So when we're talking, we have the regional bodies such as SPC, FFA, these big regional bodies that we work closely together with our CSOs and the academic institutions. But academic institutions is also inclusive of those of New Zealand and Australia.
I see. I see. Okay, so to a certain extent, the network exists, but is improving the efficiency of this network and the partnerships and the coordination that is missing.
Hi, sorry, Miss Dr. Luciana. Actually, we were having this discussion with the Ministry of Fisheries and Environment. They were talking about the custodians of the specimens. Can you just set? So what they were explaining to us is that they have two sets of data collection process. So all the endangered species sampling and stuff, Ministry of Environment looks after. And then the rest is on Ministry of Fisheries. So what we are looking into is for collaboration of information. Like when we look for information, like what we were also explaining in our presentation yesterday, that getting information is very difficult. And even we're not sure whether the source of information is correct or not. You know, especially this shouldn't be within the same ministries or, you know, the government bodies. So we would like to have some sort of that collaboration done, that information sharing becomes easy, and you know, it is being shared, and if there is any action plans being developed, everybody participate and take ownership, like accountability is there.
So we have here people from I may recall the name, either Christelle or Raksha. They're both with the Ministry of Environment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I understood correctly, you're the endangered species, so they have already been identified and classified, and so that's the. But what I think, what I'm taking from question, I hear a bit of a background noise. Yeah. What I was hearing from Komal is that okay, there's two focus of the sampling that is shared between the
sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not from our team. It's from the neighbors.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So this is becoming a bigger discussion, big party.
Raksha, mute yours.
Oh, sorry.
That's why she can hear what.
Huh?
Yeah, so if you mute yourselves, yes, I now I cannot hear anything. So I was just repeating Komal's observation that so the Ministry of Environment is focused on the endangered species, and the fisheries take care of, the Ministry of Fisheries take care of everything else. But in terms of data sharing, I guess the main question is what is the underlying policy for confidentiality? And I think this is probably both ministries have their policies and laws on what can be shared and what can't. Whether everybody agrees with that, that's a different story. But I would, yeah, I think that's perhaps something that can be looked into more detail. What are the, you know, why is data not being shared? Is it because it has a confidential status, or it is because the management of the data is not efficient, and then every time somebody needs to request data, that's a very complicated process to retrieve the data, you know, so there can be multiple reasons why the data is, why there are difficulties in accessing and sharing the data. And I know, for example, when, I can just think about the example in Portugal, when I was working there as a researcher. For example, if we want to go survey in an area and we need a map, and we ask for the Institute of Hydrography to provide. So, you know, sometimes it's not easy to get those data, because sometimes the data is also, especially the people that put the money to collect the data will all also want to get some credit on it. So there could be a lot of reasons why the data is not shared, why, because it's confidential, or because it has some economic value associated, or because, or since the data management system is not properly kept or properly maintained. So I don't know exactly what's the reality at the moment, or the specific data needs. So, for example, Kumal, if I may ask you, when you were talking about the accessing data is very difficult, is it a specific type of data that you try to access over and over, or is different sources of data? So I'm just adding a lot more for your thinking and brainstorming. And I don't know what I'm doing with managing my screen. Okay, I see a hand raised. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing with my screen at the moment, but I see Liba. Would you like to take the floor, Liba?
Thank you, Luciana. Yes, I just wanted to add on to what you were saying with a lot of, sorry, do I talk too fast?
You're good, yeah, you're okay.
With a lot of our ministries, it's like a hierarchy sort of set up. So we can process that we have to fill, and so we're going from the other ministries PS, and then that takes a lot of time. Sometimes our requests get sort of lost. Can you hear me? No?
I can hear you, but it's it has some background noise.
Now? Oh yes. Can you hear me now? I'm speaking from Kamal's mic. Yeah, okay, set. So like with a lot of our ministries, there's a hierarchy, and we can't just go to one ministry and request for data as, you know, at our level. This request needs to come from our managers. So usually what happens, if it's between the ministries, it's from one PS to the other PS, and then it follows that system down to whoever it is that has control or that is collecting that data. So that's one of the barriers we have when when trying to get data from other ministries. But then, you know, within the Ministry of Fisheries, we also face something similar. Like we have different divisions, and I can't just go to inshore. I mean, we can unofficially, but if we want official data, we need to ask their managers, who then goes to the officer in charge. And there are all these processes in place for us, and that's one of the barriers that we have on our side. And everyone's collecting different data sets. That's the other thing.
So if I understand correctly, in the end, the data can be shared. It just takes a chain of requests and time and go through. So what is needed is a more efficient system, right? A more, if you have like I think somebody mentioned over the past few days, like a centralized repository that data is put into, and that, but of course that requires the infrastructure, requires also the staff, but it's probably something that would benefit all the different ministries, right? If there's some contribution and collaboration from all. So I think this can be maybe suggested as trying to think in which level, but maybe some of the, maybe under the approaches, excuse me, on how, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Luciana, just to add on to what I mentioned earlier. So at times, just to speed that process, we have MOUs with our line ministries, and that, that allows us to access specific information, an officer from our level to another officer at within the other ministry, and just directly, request for data that way. But if we don't have this MOU in place, then it's a really long process for us. And at the end of the day, it depends on, if they're willing to facilitate our process, and if they think, if they're willing to facilitate our request, and if they think there's some relevance in the data that we're requesting from them.
Sure, yeah, I understand. I'm also not sure it's a very simple problem to solve, to be honest. Yeah, but I think there are probably some suggestions that can be made to facilitate that sharing of data. And yeah, and perhaps like you say, not only, with the existing MOUs, but there can be more updated sort of discussion on what is relevant and what should be made available to the different stakeholders, right? So, because ultimately that also would make the use of those resources more cost effective, right? Ultimately. But of course, at the government level, I understand there's many barriers and many things to be slowly communicated among each other. So yeah, oops, I mute myself. I think it is a good point that needs to, because for example, if you're willing to be more effective in sampling designs and sampling needs, obviously it is.
I'm back on again.
Oh, can you hear? Yeah. Okay, I was just finishing saying that, actually, I forgot what I was saying. I just forgot, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna give Kamal her headpiece back and take mine.
Okay, it will come back to me.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, because I'm using my personal data. That's why. Hello?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, so sorry, I kind of lost track of my train of thought there. I think I was just going probably in another circle, another loop. So let's probably just write down the main point that was made. I think that is to do with accessing data. I think I know. Okay, it has to do with the sampling designs, and accessing data would also inform the needs for sampling design for the sampling, right? So otherwise you're repeating, probably going to places that are not needed anymore, or also wasting resources. So I think that system of efficient system for sharing data would also help that. Okay, so I'm sorry.
So
it took a little bit of my brain power, but I got there.
Part of the coming back to the action plan of how we are going to implement the
goal number 1 is that's why we're saying we write to the ministry of what we want or what our plans are, and probably in such situation clarification is always sorted from SG's office, Solicitor General's office, either to have an memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement. We don't decide at this stage what should be the document we called. So that's why we are just going to write an open letter to the permanent secretaries and see what are their opinions on this. And in order to do that, we will need support from the professors and support from also from Quaker, that we are not just from different ministries have turned up and thought that we want to write a letter to the PS and we're doing it. We need the assistance from the Quaker office as well, that this is part of this training outcome action plan, and we are doing this and putting forward this, and this is what we need to have in order to implement our plans that we got in place. So that is how we are going to implement, or that's our action item number 1 to go forward in forming collaboration with government stakeholders for biological sampling and preservation. So in the letter, we need to write a plan of what are we intention to do.
Yeah, maybe I can suggest something else there, because I mean, like you say, right, the end or whether it's going to be a MOU or MOA, or what exact way it's gonna be needed, it's not something that you may at the moment to be able to answer. But not only maybe like so now you're doing this as part of this training course, as starting your collaboration, right, at your level. Maybe one important and it's not that I'm trying to detach this from COICA and MABIC and so forth, because to be, like I said earlier, I need to understand exactly what's their role or expectation or need for continued involvement. So I'm from ISA, right? I'm not involved in that part. But one thing I think it's important to think about is what are the practical ways, and for example, to organize a forum that would bring, so sort of recreate what you have here, but with the higher level persons that need that can make decisions, right? Because at your level, you are not making the decisions, if I understand correctly. So maybe a forum is another way. So the letter could be, a suggestion or invitation to have that discussion. And maybe this could be something that happens even regularly, to understand, how those decisions can be updated depending on the needs as time passes. So I'm just giving additional ideas on approaches that can be suggested to improve that communication, to bring the key persons that need to discuss this topic. Because otherwise, imagine, even if your letter is very well written with a stamp from somebody else, and it goes into there, and then who knows what will happen to it, right? I mean, I'm also you probably know better the system than I do to
and we cannot just write a letter just like that. We need to first develop a plan for collaboration. What are we planning to do? Then that plan will be the supporting document of the letter. So there is two parts of this action item. First, we need to develop a plan for collaboration, and then we need to write a letter to the PS for different ministries.
Right. Okay. So I think I'm a bit confused with. Yeah, I just wanted to have a quick look at where we are, because I think we have been having very productive discussion, although there's been quite a few colleagues that are more shy or more quiet. Maybe we also want to hear from them. I don't know who's writing also, so I just want to make sure that everybody is
Lemba is writing.
Lemba is writing. Okay,
Yes.
and that everything that is being said is being
Written.
supported by everybody else. What I
Yes.
want to ask is that there's no different views or more suggestions.
No, before we say something, we look at each other's face. If somebody is frowning at us, then we think, oh, we should stop.
That's called peer pressure, but let's take out the pressure here.
Actually, I'd like to say something with regards to that.
Sure, go ahead.
This is what makes women different from when we come up to sessions like this, and we can interpret body language. We understand that there's some things that needs more elaboration. So it's those little cues that help us to understand that maybe I do not have enough information on certain things, so I need to get their point of views from the rest of the group members on this table. So that we have to link that to why we're here, global women leadership. This is what makes us different. If you'd have the males here on the table, you wouldn't be able to understand these kinds of cues. Even if you did identify this, they wouldn't be very open towards sharing it and moving forward. So,
yes,
yeah.
thank you, Roiva. I think that's a very good point, and maybe yeah, this is something that I don't know how we can incorporate those thoughts in the action plan, but it's true that yeah, at least making sure that the steps and the follow-up discussions will not, that you ladies will all disappear from it, right? I mean, how to make sure that either you or other colleagues from your offices, other female officers, will follow up these discussions and continue. Not only to make sure that they continue in the way that you also envision, but like you say, because also you are creating your own professional and personal relationships through these processes. And I think the more I also work at the level that I'm working at the moment, the more I understand also the value of that human connection as well, and make it. So that's yeah, that's also a very good point. So I don't know, in terms of yeah, for example, suggesting, I don't know, I'm just making up now. I'll just make up something, but definitely because I'm also not an expert in gender issues and what are the you know, the necessary measures to implement these things. So this is something actually my colleague Sonakshi, she asked me if there were any specific questions that she could also help to address. So this is something that if we cannot, maybe we can just put it as a placeholder in the document so that we can come back to this point. Tomorrow she will join us again in the discussion. What I know from our practice, but that's also a broader UN level practice, is that we try as much as possible gender balance. So if we organize a meeting, we try to make the meeting gender balanced and geographically balanced, right? So there are some things, but I to be honest, it also goes a little bit beyond my my knowledge at the moment, but I think it's very important point. And if I may add, I would love to be in Fiji right now. This would make our discussion a lot more, also more interesting, definitely. I'm also seeing it's, I don't know, I'm a bit confused. What is the tea time? So you may let me know. But and what time? Shang Tsung, I'm sorry. Can I ask you to guide me on that? I'm a bit confused with the making. How long have we? No, I think we still have time, right? We still have another hour?
Yes, we still have an hour and a half.
Okay, so tea is not until 2:30 Fijian. Fiji
Oh, tea
time.
break, yes.
The tea break.
There's nothing here to eat, so we don't worry about it. Huh?
Okay. Sorry, I just didn't. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I would imagine that you would have said something if you, if I couldn't. Yeah, if I was keeping you from the opportunity of having a break. So yeah, so let's continue. I think we are making very good progress.
So we are done with the objective number 1, which was to form collaboration with government stakeholders. We have identified our key stakeholders. We have identified what we are going to do to accomplish our objective. And moving on to the second part, number 2, which was on to develop standardized sampling plans and methods. And I think what Ministry of Fisheries have identified is the gap between the departments and other sister departments and other organizations. So they'll need to come together to standardize the sampling plans and stuff. So I think number 2 is pretty much simple. And moving on to the last objective or the goal, which is to seek CAPEX budget, which is capital expenditure budget for technological innovation. Now here we are looking into what you have shown to us, some of the equipments that we're looking at. And so the equipments will be looked for sampling, preservations, and we also looking into capacity building of women in this business case. And so we looking at this document as one of the key document. Even for any of the action items to be implemented, ma'am, we need funding from our government. And how our government works, they don't give money just like that. They need business case. So this business case is one of the most critical thing that this group will be developing, and it involves a lot of analysis, financial analysis, economic analysis, all the manpower, resources, whatever. So when we are doing this, it involves a lot of effort and work and thinking. It may be a simple thing, but for us, it may be a bit complex, because after this training from after Friday, we all will be going back to our normal lives, go and doing our own stuff. And we write business case of our own departments and things. The financial, the constraint would be we will not be getting any funding in this financial year. Right? We ready our business case. All right, we go through the due processes of getting vetted and approved. Then come the next financial year, which will be from next year, mid next year. Yes, then it will get submitted. No, but we can always submit it. There's no harm. We can always submit it before that. The submissions of these business cases are normally due in February or something, March. Yeah, we can submit it by then next year. And then we can wait for the funding. Once the funding is there, then there will be another level of thinking, who will be responsible, who will hold the money to execute the plan. So those are secondary issues that we will be then looking at. But currently this group will be looking into securing a budget for implementing our action plans.
I see. So yeah, this is very exciting. I think probably, and I would definitely like to see this moving forward. But like you say, if it is obviously something that with your daily jobs, it's probably not so easy. So again, maybe a suggestion would be to have also more clear sort of step-by-step approach, and how you can develop that document, and maybe you would need to meet regularly, or to create some well, you already shared all your emails and shared your Google document. I mean, I'm just thinking ways of that you can also, I mean, and not necessarily only you. I don't know if you would have to involve other persons as well, because like you say, there are very many complex issues to be looked at, into analyzing costs, analyzing equipment, analyzing resources, analyzing or collecting all that information.
The last part is the most exciting part, because as I said, developing business cases is not easy, because it requires all the financial things. You have to calculate all the NPVs and IRRs, all the financial terminologies and stuff like that, which we always do. I think for me, every year I write so many business cases. So I have the experience, so I can draft something, and then we can circulate it within the team members, and they can do their inputs. So how we are going to work is that we are going to use each of our individual strengths in different areas, and then put it together.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And maybe when I need to write a business case, I know now who I should contact. I'm joking. I'm just, but no, that sounds really great. It's definitely, and I'm just making this joke because today I also had to prepare a budget, and that was breaking my head with it.
Yes, yes, yeah.
But anyway, no, I think that's great that you also have identified your individual skills and experiences here that can help and contribute to that. What I think would be, yeah, perhaps also try to think about ways that do not recreate the wheel, right? To try to look at what's already available, what's and who are others that I don't know. Is the university, for example, also interested in you know, because yeah, here is another thing, another topic that I might just be throwing out some ideas and or even some questions, because I do feel what you're saying, you know, what was the situation in Portugal, for example, where Portugal as a country also does not have a lot of those equipment that I showed, right? So many of those quite advanced tools are first are quite expensive, and but there are more and more accessible and more commercial versions of them, and creative lower budget version. So I think it's probably a bit of that sort of first research and understanding what exactly would be needed, and then how it can be used. Because, for example, Portugal, and I'm just giving the example I know best, was that when the government decided to prepare the application for the extension of continental shelf, right? They had this project, they created a whole new called, you know, how they call it? I forget now the names in Portuguese and the names in English. But anyway, they create a task group. Sorry, I forgot the name. Task group to develop that. And in that, to do that, they also acquired a remote operated vehicle, right? Which is one of the tools that I showed, the one that basically it's a robot that it's put down in the water. It's still linked to the vessel with the cable, and the persons in the vessel can drive it, and then they can collect samples with the robotic arms and so forth. So it's a very what I would say, it's very versatile, very useful tool, and can be used for so many things, but it also requires very specialized experts to even to manipulate it. So what we call the pilots, the ROV pilots, are, you know, it's like training somebody that you know, like for training to pilot a train or or an airplane, you know, like they need to develop those skills. And it's so thinking about when, you know, like you mentioned, there's so many details that need to go into this analysis, because, you know, the investment is not only in the equipment, is in the human resources that come with it, but also the opportunities, right? Because, for example, what happened in Portugal is that at the moment that task force finished, they finalized the application, submitted, are waiting for the result. And in the meantime, they started to create more and more collaboration. So the ROV, like the equipment and the team associated with them, is collaborating with other in many different projects, or even with other countries, like the Spanish, the Institute of Oceanography. They have also many vessels, and then so that they collaborate. So those are also opportunities to then make that resource more cost effective in a long time, right? So it would not necessarily only benefit the individual. I don't know if it's going to be the Ministry of, and then there's always this fight, like you say, who's gonna keep it, who's gonna use it. Yeah, there's always these things. We find the same in Portugal and then everywhere. But it's the point is that it's not only the institution that holds the equipment that benefits from it. So it's a much broader benefit if you can expand the collaboration. So a lot of the deep sea research that Portugal has done, in most cases, was done in collaboration with other countries. So, you know, so we join as observers or as part of the team and pay a smaller contribution to the survey. So this is very common in deep water research, to have these projects that are, most cases, it's not only one institute that is involved, it's several institutes, because the vessels and the equipments are so expensive that it really requires a lot of contributions from different funding sources, right? So I really encourage the continuation of this work, but maybe you can identify this step by step so that you don't feel also overwhelmed with all these details, right? Because maybe first thing is to identify even, you know, what would be, what is it that needs to be sampled that would benefit from a new tool or a more efficient tool, and a more that can then also, and then you move from there, perhaps. So sorry, sometimes I feel like I talk for quite a long time, and I don't want to distract the writing. So
I think our writer went to the washroom. Oh, she said.
yeah, the writer
One of
went
the
to-
writers.
I'm just having a quick look at the document and the online version. Okay, something I okay. Yeah, I was thinking, I was just exactly at that spot where I think Crisel is adding some text. Yeah, thinking about the outcomes and success criteria to these, to measure the long-term impacts of the action plan. So I don't know, how are you feeling? I confess I could use a 5 minutes break or so. I know, I think the tea time is not until 30 minutes from now. It's not yet, right? But yeah, if you can excuse me for 5 minutes, I think I need a very short wake
Sure,
up
ma'am.
break.
Yes, sure.
So I'll be
we-
back. Yeah, but
Yes.
let me know. I think we're making very good progress. So is there any particular question that you want to address or discuss further?
Currently, we are having just discussions and action plans, and just having discussions within amongst ourselves at the moment, just to clarify the issues or any issues that we have. So that's okay. Thank you. You can take your break, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I'll be back very shortly.
Sure.
And I really appreciate the effort you're putting in it. It's been a great pleasure for me. Thank you. I'll be back.
Sure.
So hi again. Sorry, I was away for a while. But in the meantime, I was also reading the document and trying to find. Can you all hear me? Sorry, you're still having your discussions.
Right, because usually fisheries will be involved in the sampling. When institutes come in and they want samples, we'll be involved in the sampling, whether it be true sampling or actually catching the whole specimen, the fish itself or the sea cucumber, we'll be involved.
Yes.
Right. So what we can do is form a collaboration with the environment and say, because we're doing the sampling, we will provide you with the information so that when you report to the secretariat as part of the CBT,
Yes.
or the,
Yes.
CITES,
Yes.
you can inform them this is currently the information
That we have.
collected
True.
by our ministry, and we
Yes.
are agreed to store it centrally or share it
Yes. True. True.
so that we can share this.
Yes. Yes.
Because we can't directly share to central. We will have to
Yes.
talk to the
Yes.
And if we want to, like in terms of putting up new species into cycles, making
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And because when we look at EPS, like I know you have your own acts and legislations, but like, and you are the fishery, so you look after marine. But when it comes to EPS and all those things, then environment overtakes. Yes.
Enforcing both, because when if we have to implement the even fishing legislation, we need to know those.
True. Because we shouldn't be contradicting. We should be on the same. Yeah.
Double dipping. We need to know yours. Because like this, when okay, this is reality. We're now to be able to reach. If we do any question of doing it, it's just we are asked.
You
but the
yeah, you yes. So sorry, you were saying you are? Sorry, just excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
So you like playing some of their roles? Or why don't you just merge as one?
We can't. We can't. Because they, well, see.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I have been enjoying. It's funny. I have been enjoying seeing all your discussions happening. It's great actually. But at the same time, I was reading the document and trying to guide a little bit what may, where the focus need to go now that the time is also running away. I mean, you will have another hour, if I understand correctly, to continue working on it. But we need to, we need to think about wrapping up for the plenary before, so at least to give a point, a status where we are there. But so if I may just make some comment on what I read, and I think in my view, at least those 2 points that are, there are 2 points made about training and capacity building that are under expected outcomes and success criteria. And maybe I would argue that that is actually also one approach to implement so not necessarily an outcome. Of course, the outcome would be to have more trained persons, which is what you need, right? But perhaps those, the capacity building is needed as an approach to also implement the action plan. Would you agree, disagree? Okay, that's good. Yeah, so maybe we need to think about what are the expected outcomes. What in 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now, if this plan is implemented, what would change? What would be the benefit?
Oh yeah, so with specific customary fishing grounds, we identify habitats, and then we generally are aware of species that can be found in these habitats, keystone species or species of interest, or species that should be found that are indicators of the health status of whatever that habitat is, if they're there or not, because these species, they have other organisms or other organisms or other families that they form different kind of relationships with. For example, for parrotfish, they have cleaneres, a smaller fish that cleans the inside of their mouths. If you see parrotfish, you are able to identify that this place has to have very clean white sand. And so when you have parrotfish, you will have these cleanereses. So there are linkages between all of these different species that are also linked to the habitat that they live in. So that's what makes it sort of complicated, very complex.
But one thing we also have to understand is that all this information, to put it into a book, will be very hard. Like, yeah, and not only just fish and fish have that relationship. We have fish and invertebrates that have symbiotic relationships as such, and for us within the Ministry of Fisheries, like I can be very good at identifying reef fish, but I have no idea when I see sea cucumber, or I don't know the different kinds of corals. So what usually happens within the ministry is that we share. If I learn all the finfish,
it's impossible. Yes, exactly. So if you have to organize for a team to go out, you have to have a representative who specializes in whatever species. Microorganisms.
No, they were more on class. So that's higher up. Yes.
So I'm going to interrupt you again once more. If you can give me another couple minutes of fame.
I'm sorry, did you?
Yes.
Did you ask a question?
I was asking for another couple of minutes of fame from my side. I'm joking.
Okay.
No, I see you have a very intense discussions, but I'm also checking the time.
Oh yeah.
I also yeah. So I wanted to throw I don't know if I can help in what you were discussing, because it seems like you're probably, I don't know if it's becoming a dispersing and going right? Or another suggestion I was going to say is that I think while I was reading again at the beginning, we made the point on linking this topic with the preservation of marine environment. So maybe this is something that it's probably, I didn't want to lose that idea, which is also put at the beginning of the plan, but maybe you could think, because I remember there were some points about sharing or at least being aware of what are the permits and how those how that information is taken into account when you discuss the sampling methods and the sampling plans. So maybe there is some room to include those ideas. I think it is in there's sorry, I'm just trying to think where I thought it could go. Especially addressing yeah, when it's more for the sorry, the goal number 2. So about standardizing plans and methods, maybe there can be some reference there, taking into account the acts and permits needed for environmental protection or biodiversity conservation. So I believe the colleagues from the Ministry of Environment can help with the language there, and maybe also at the expected outcome. So by having the sampling sampling and preservation methodologies more efficient and enhanced, that can also translate into more effective implementation of conservation measures. So these are just some suggestions, again, but I thought that this was a very important point that was brought to the group at the beginning, and yeah, you may want to develop that a little bit further. So that was it from my side. Other than that, I was enjoying knowing that about identifying sea cucumbers and parrotfishes and all that. That's great. You know, I was a taxonomist as well at some point, So I really appreciate that. And you're right. So the level of expertise that is needed is also a challenge, right? So you may also consider that. So I don't want to jump more in your very fruitful discussions, but let me know if I can give any further input or guidance so that things start to come into an end at least for the next 20 minutes or so, and then you can continue. Thank you.
Is it okay if we put in as part of one of our suggested sort of standardized method would be the use of videos too? Because considering that, some of our organisms we can see for Fiji, most of them that determine that we identify as keystone species, they are very visible. So we could use, videos as a standard method for sampling keystone species, like fish.
For documenting?
Yeah, documenting. Not for sampling. Sampling method.
Do you mean having a camera?
In the
Like a
water.
time lapse?
Yeah. And then, we can use whatever fish is in the video, we can tick it off, identify. Because sometimes what happens is when you're in the water, if the fish is moving a bit too fast for you, you might misidentify. Because sometimes the only difference between two fish is a spot. So the video would give you a more, you can pause it and look, okay, the spot is there, that could be one of our proposed standardized methods.
That's the solution.
And it also addresses our preservation too, because the video is easier to store than a live sample.
We as to come and fully come up with 10 years. Because yes, we do have this and it should be there if it's
and then we'll be able to know, okay, this species is disappearing. We saw this 10 years ago in a video that was taken 10 years ago. Because the way technology is moving, we are not going to go back. I mean, we are holding a phone in our hand and it's got a book and everything.
Yeah, we got something like that on the fishing vessels, not all of them, some of them. And so we have officers at the office who watch the videos as they're hauling in the tuna and whatever. And then from that, they're able to identify what's being brought into the vessel. And they're like algorithms too. And that enables them to determine the size of the fish as well. So there's like a point of reference, and then from there they can use that to calculate what size and the estimated weight.
No, because if we've already got things like that in place, all we just need to do is customize them, enhance them, for other areas. But in terms of really small, the ones that we need the microscope and things, then we can look to institutes like Mabic and ISA to help us with what they have and how we can customize it for Fiji. Because for us at the moment, looking into the area, we may be able to contribute to what ISA is doing by sending in 1 or 2 people to as part of their internship program or being on attachment with them. But for Fiji, I think for the moment, our focus is try to know what we have now. What we have now. Then because we don't know what we had. So in terms of so we try now. Our action plan should focus on knowing what we have now.
What we have collected is special.
What was there?
So in the 10-year plan, maybe
collect as much as we can. Collect as many samples as possible. Because if you think about sampling, whether it's valuable.
Yeah.
It's not things sort of
Because
if we don't really know,
have a value.
yeah, they all
They
have
all
their
have a
own
value.
value. If it's not monetary value, it'll have a
Ecological value.
Yeah. So like, but that's the important thing. Our sampling, our way forward for us should be know what we currently have so that we can determine what is new in the next 10 years and what has gone. So that it's nice.
Baseline study.
Yeah, baseline. If we are able to collect enough, they'll be able to identify and see whether it's a need. If we do and forget about new species or identifying whether they will get because our sampling tool will also inform whether how many endemics we have, because we have regionally endemic species, but we have country specific country endemics. Another challenge is that we have samples. So we need to have the GIS we don't have to go back to that era, but
No, you need to go back.
You need to go back, but just have a gradual time lapse, Yeah. I'm mapping out the
Study sites.
study sites. Yeah. Study sites. Study what is it? Research. Because you have to remember, Fiji, our EEZ is very big. And our coastal zone is very big too.
We have limited everything else.
So once again, I think this discussion is great, especially because I just organized a workshop in video survey. So I'm very happy to hear that you also understand the value of that. I think this is a great input that you can make for many reasons, like you mentioned, the standardization, maybe also less invasive sampling methods and so forth. But I just wanted to mention quickly, there's about 10 minutes left. If you need to ask anything more specifically from my side, my guidance, that would be the time to do it, because I think you can then continue for another hour or so to develop more. So just letting me know.
So I have one question with, I think it's more in relation to your work with ISA. So like, could we also include as part of our action plan that one of the expected outcomes of this action plan is to get at least 1 or 2 women into the ISA as interns to undergo to get experience with deep sea research, and then they could come and let us know like the difference and how things can be applied to Fiji. So can we include that, or do we save that for some other time?
No, I think the action plan can definitely make those links. If you see that the value, sorry, there's a bit of
I'm sorry. Apologies.
If you see the value of making these linkages, I would say it's more of an activity that can be suggested, and perhaps part of that capacity building, since you're considering the development of or innovating methodologies and so on. This could be a great way to get to learn those tools and equipment, and then also increase or establish new opportunities for collaboration. Because like I said, many of these instruments and equipments is not really, you know, you don't start by just buying one out of the blue, right? You need to train persons, you need to understand the value, you need to, and I think in that case, the ISA training programs can really provide that opportunity, and the same for, so in terms of technology, in terms of also of deep sea biodiversity, also understanding, like even for managing data and so on, there can be many learnings that can be taken through ISA, even though it's applied in the area. Many of these knowledges can be applied also in coastal and EEZ areas, because we're talking about managing information, dealing with information, exchanging and sharing information. So I think all this can fit well into having ISA. Plus, it would also, I think, increase the networking and opportunities for more collaboration. So yeah, but I would say it's not so much expected outcome, but more, again, activity or action.
I had wanted to say, can you hear me? I had wanted to say that within, when we are looking at deep sea minerals in Fiji, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, sorry. There are specific acts that are enacted by the Department of Lands. We have the 1978 Continental Shelf Act. We have the Mining Act as well, that have regulations and frameworks for deep sea mineral mining or biodiversity.
Exploration, at least, yeah.
Exactly. So for exploration activities by external companies. So that's another body, other government body altogether. When we're looking at when you're looking at ISA's capacities for deep sea biodiversity taxonomy, or even identifying the minerals that are there in the country.
So you say it's a different department, it's a different ministry
altogether.
That it's more. I see. So what you're saying is that perhaps they would be the ones that would
be the legal arm, the implementing arm.
Right. I see.
Currently, our stakeholders include the Ministry of Environment that looks after the terrestrial and marine environment, and then we have overlapping jurisdiction with Ministry of Fisheries, and then we have the Ministry of Lands with their overlapping policies. In this instance, the Mining Act or the Continental Shelf Act.
I see.
So policies are there, frameworks are in place, but different government bodies enacting or implementing.
But would that, I mean, it doesn't, and maybe, sorry if this is a question that is more naive of me, but my question would be, would your ministry not support your training or your exchange experience in that field, just because it's not yet, it's not within your scope or mandate?
Actually, it's within the mandate. It's within the Minister of Fisheries as a whole, likewise for Ministry of Environment.
Right.
It's because it's biodiversity conservation, and we come into that. It's also on what is this? It's access benefit sharing framework
Right.
with regards
Yes.
to extraction of natural resources, biodiversity
Sure.
disturbance.
Yeah.
So all of this is where Ministry of Environment comes in as well.
Yeah. So yeah. So I don't think that then it would be then it wouldn't hurt to include that in the action plan, because like we explained, you know, ISA has also many different mandates. So regulating the exploration activity is one mandate, but the preservation of marine environment, the marine scientific research is another one. So when we, and capacity building. So when we, you know, you can, and within the capacity building activities, they also can be addressed for various things. So I see complete complementarity here for things related to taxonomy, to database management, to yeah, so the program of Women in Deep Sea Research, for example, would even be also another one, especially for technology. That was the other one I wanted to mention. So taxonomy, technology, and data management. So I see that those areas are directly linked to what you want to develop through this sampling program, and especially for those methodologies that can become more automated, right? So like when we talk about serving with the videos, and because again, that's another strategy, right? Instead of having to increase the number of people going out to sea, you probably can improve the technologies to also make those surveys more standardized, and can be done more frequently, can be done also more, can be replicated in different areas. So yeah, cost effective, exactly.
Yeah, Jackie had mentioned reducing the risks as well.
Exactly. And reducing the number of actually animals you collect, which I think in the end,
Which is our
also
objective.
important. Yeah, in the end.
Management of business.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what's going to happen with our, we just continue in this link. I guess we just continue. I think we can just continue working on it until
Invite who? Because I can fax it over.
Hello. Trying to get some attention here.
I think a lot of the ladies left for tea. Is that right?
It's a tea break.
Is it the tea break now? I'm so confused with the time.
I think
Oh, we're here.
passed. But
You here? Oh, yes.
hi.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I couldn't see you.
Roiva Mail. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I was
You can
just
just call me Eva.
Eva. Perfect. Eva. I was just thinking about what you said about how there are overlapping policies in your national context, lack of capacity building opportunities, etc., and potential collaboration with ISA. So, like Luciana mentioned, we have training programs, especially designed for women, including developing states, including SIDS, so the Small Island Developing States, which includes Fiji. So we do have specific programs designed for women, and I was thinking it is also a good sort of entry point or even a point of growth for women in Fiji. So in the national context, I don't know very well, but from the discussion, it seems that there are lack of opportunities for women to grow or even enter into the sector. Yes, it's important to mention that your policies in the national context, the acts that you mentioned by the department and the policies that ICE is developing have very different jurisdictional scope. So they don't overlap, right? Your national policies apply only within your national jurisdiction, and ISA laws apply, regulations and measures apply with beyond national jurisdiction. However, ecosystems, they don't care about our jurisdictions. They don't have passports, and they all share similar elements, although different region has different context. So in this regard, it could be a good way in if women in Fiji or people in general, because we do have other training programs, can take up advantage or collaborate with ISA in these capacity building initiatives, and then bring their knowledge and experience back to the Fijian context and then share that. So if there are any opportunities or linkages between these programs in your national context that can coordinate, that can link with the opportunities that IS is providing, so perhaps people who are trained or who had experience in ISA's training programs or women in leadership project, etc., they can bring back the knowledge and share with the people that are being trained in your national context, or if there is any platform that can make that linkage, it could be a good opportunity to share science and also tap on the existing resources, because it is very expensive research, right? Going into deep sea, and ISA is one place that can that you can benefit from. Of course, there are not many opportunities for everyone in the world, but there is definitely opportunities for especially women. So while the national efforts are moving forward to bring women into the sector, or even just scientists in deep sea research, while that goals are moving forward, you can still use the existing opportunities at the international context and bring that knowledge in. And yeah, and vice versa. If there are people trained by the national capacity building programs, they can also be sent, and they can be selected to send for further exchange at the international context, and that way you can increase your voice and also expose your issues or any other capacity building needs that you may have at the broader context, which can bring more resources and diversify your avenues for opportunities. So it's just a little token of thought that I wanted to share with you. Thanks.
Thank you. That's exactly it.
Thank you, Shang. Also, I'm just getting message from the Mavic staff that it's time to return to the main session. So I think we had a very productive and very interesting discussion. I also learned a lot with you. So I would say we go to the main session, and then I think afterwards you will have more time to continue putting these thoughts. And thanks for highlighting those links. I think it's very important and would definitely benefit, I think, your action plan and also the capacity opportunities for building capacity. All right. So thanks a lot, everybody. Yes, we'll continue seeing you in the main room.